We can do it. Yes, we can. We can change things throughout the land. But we all must lend a hand. We can do it. Oh, yes, we can. Oh, your neighbor over there, a bit bewildered, but he cares.
So June of 2001 is kind of an interesting date because July, August, September 2001,
Yes,
the Twin Towers came down.
yes. It changed the whole world.
And how did it change you?
Well, the things that I was hearing after 9/11 about people around the rest of the world in Afghanistan were just so, there were misunderstandings of the truth. I mean, people had no idea what really went on there. And then, you know, I just felt I had to go back and check on my friends. I can't even remember what made me go back. I think before I moved, I didn't think I would go back because it's so far away. But
Right.
after this happened, I had to go back.
And did you go after we had invaded Afghanistan?
I was there while we were bombing Tora Bora. And I'll never forget that. I take pictures of everything. And I was sitting at Lahore Polo Club, and one of the B-52 bombers flew overhead, and I didn't take pictures of that because everybody pretended it didn't happen, because they weren't really they weren't supposed to be in Pakistan airspace.
Right. They weren't
but they
involved.
were.
They didn't want to
Right.
be involved, right?
Yeah, and so it didn't happen. You know, it was just such a profound time to be there. I'm really happy that I was there at that time because it gives everything more meaning. And I heard little stories from the ground of who we were bombing and what was happening. And I mean, it was a completely different scenario than being here, that's for sure.
Right. So when you came back from that visit, how did you decide to become active?
Well, I heard a few people on NPR. In fact, I heard one woman, Sahar Sabah, and I couldn't find her. I didn't know where. I didn't write down where. I was in the car when I heard it. I just remember the name Sahar. And I was looking around for organizations to get involved in it, and I found the Afghan Women's Mission. And amazing, I eventually did find Sahar when I went to Pakistan the next time. She was my guide in Pindi, and this was this Afghan activist. I was so happy that I had found her coincidentally. But you know, most of the radio and television, the news here really didn't make much sense. It still
From what you
doesn't.
knew of Pakistan.
It still doesn't make
firsthand.
much sense. Yeah, it's really.
And what does the Afghan Women's Mission do?
They are the funding arm of the Revolutionary Association of the Women of Afghanistan. And
That's a wonderful title.
yeah, it's called RAWA, and RAWA is the oldest socio-political organization in Afghanistan. It works for democracy and human rights. The more you read about them, the more you learn about them, the more you like them. However, they do not negotiate with the government because the government is the most corrupt government in the world. I mean, we have installed warlords to run the country. And so they're very clandestine at this moment. They're everywhere, but nobody really says that name anyway.
Because they would be in danger?
They would be shot. Definitely, they would be. Yeah, it doesn't really exist. In fact, I've talked to many people who've been in Afghanistan, but there's no RAWA presence in Afghanistan because you can't see it. It's there.
Right, right.
But
And you became concerned particularly about the medical situation of Afghan women. And do you want to tell us a little bit about, you know, we hear, oh, they can't get their education, but what is this about medical care?
well, if you think about what do Afghans want, does anybody ever ask Afghans, what do Afghans want in Afghanistan? And if you ask them, the first thing they will say is, I don't want my children to die. And, you know, 1 in 4 children die before the age of 5 of pneumonia or diarrhea, easily curable disease in this country. So the first thing they say should be the first thing we work on.
And the women themselves aren't that healthy, right?
Well, they don't go to the doctor. There often isn't a doctor they can even go to. Or if there is, they can't afford it. So there's one doctor for every, depends on whose statistic you're looking at, 5,000 or 6,000 people. And you really have to be in an urban setting to find a doctor. So most Afghan women stay at home and have their babies at home and never go to the doctor unless there's a problem, and often by then it's too late.
And they're anemic and...
They're anemic. They have an average of 7 children. They're anemic. There's no birth control. Every 20 to 30 minutes, an Afghan woman dies in childbirth or of some other disease because of no medical care. In the statistics in 2009, 24,000 women died that year.
And this wasn't from bombs or
Nope.
anything?
This is 5 times more people that die in the security situation, in the insecurity. 24,000 women died, which is 5 times more the number of people who were killed in the insecurity situation. And they died because of lack of medical attention.
And that's 1 every 20 minutes, I gather.
Depending on whose statistics,
And-
20
and
or 30 minutes.
How are the Afghan doctors, if you did get to one?
Well, the medical school in Kabul doesn't produce doctors like we would know it, because it's so corrupt that people are connected, get degrees or get through school or get into school, or you can buy a medical degree. So the doctors are of questionable quality, even the ones they have. So the medical situation is appalling.
And so what did the Afghan Women's Mission hope to do about this?
Well, the way Afghan Women's Mission helps RAWA, which does a lot of things. But RAWA does not produce medical professionals. That's just too big a scope. What they do is they run orphanages and schools and clinics. They help fund clinics and hospitals, but they don't actually make doctors. So originally we were going to make some doctors in Pakistan, but the problem is Afghans are really not welcome in Pakistan, and especially after January 2012, there's going to be another big step to try to get them to go home.
Because there are refugee camps, of course, where so many Afghans have fled.
Most of them have been closed. Most of them have been closed. There's many Afghans that still are in Pakistan illegally. Many of them just want to stay so that they can get their children educated. But, you know, Pakistan does have a lot of its own problems, and part of Afghanistan is associated with the seedy element, the drugs and crime, and, you know, Pakistan has a lot of its own problems. So they want to work on their own problems. And, you know, there's a lot of discrimination against Afghans in Pakistan. So even if an Afghan was going to stay in Pakistan to go to school, they could be targeted, and it could be very dangerous. So we did have these 2 girls who we were going to sponsor, but their family and their organization said, no, you have to come back. It's too dangerous for you. And I've always wanted to do midwives, because midwives are something you can produce rapidly. The course could be 18 months to 2 years, whereas a doctor, it's going to be like 6 or 8 years.
Right, and with each Afghan woman having 7 children, there's lots of work for Afghan women.
There's lots of work. There's lots of work for a
Right.
midwife.
So is that when you founded Help Women Heal?
We founded it a year and a half ago, and we just knew we wanted to help with the medical situation, because that has always really bothered me, and most organizations are trying to do so many things, that's not something that they can target. I wanted to help babies and mothers. Afghanistan is the most dangerous place in the world to be a woman, and the most appalling place in the world to be a mother.
And this is not even worrying about the Taliban striking you, or crime, or this is just living.
Yeah, just
It's the
everyday
most
life.
dangerous place.
Yes.
And particularly, are there a lot of deaths in childbirth? Is that a big?
Yes.
And a lot of babies born who die.
Yes, yes. Only, I think 1/3 of the babies born die before 6 months.
Oh, think of
It's
that.
appalling. Can you imagine having that many
Yeah.
babies die in your family, or even?
Right. And so, if you trained one a midwife and she only saw delivered babies every other day, that one person could affect 150 families or more.
Right.
So how are you going to do that?
Well, we're still planning, and we're still in the planning stages, because once we started thinking about midwives, we started thinking, well, who's going to be able to afford to pay them, even? So I think we're going to work on the infrastructure, and we're going to work on how they're going to travel around, It's not, they need people to help them travel around even.
Right.
Traveling around in Afghanistan is dangerous. So there's a lot of different things to work on, but we have lots of people that are going to help us. It's a very exciting project, but we are still in the planning stages.
Well, that's so interesting to think, well, all right, we'll train up midwives. Then, well, how are the midwives going to get to the patients, some of whom may be in rural areas?
Right.
And then you have to get them there safely. So they're going to need someone to go with them? Like, are women allowed to go on their own or
No,
not?
they would have to have escorts with them. But also, we want to get women from those villages trained as midwives. We don't
So
want
in order
send,
to, you're going to do this in a hospital setting, correct?
right? But we want to recruit women from around rural areas where there is nobody.
Right, but then you're going to have to bring them in because they
Right.
can't,
Right.
it's not like you catch a bus and end up in Peshawar hospital an hour later.
Well, we have to find somebody to pay to drive them. That's also going to be a concern. But the most important thing is to find good candidates who will take the course and will be a good quality midwife and will be in locations that they can help a lot of people.
Okay, so now you're in the most corrupt country run by the most corrupt government in the world. How do you know the doctors are going to just take the money and not see any of the women?
Right. Well, that's another thing. We're not going to go through the government. We have to get government approval.
But are the citizens not, the next stage down, the doctors, the professionals, are they not corrupt also?
Not all of them. I have Afghans that, well, especially my one partner, she has fled Afghanistan because she was on the Taliban hit list. And she knows many wonderful people. There's many good people there, many honest people that really do want to help. You just have to know how to find them. And I have grassroots friends that can help me find them, and she's going to find the doctors. So it's a coordination of many people at many levels, but it will not be through the government. But we will have to get government permission.
Now, you've done a lot of work with Afghans in Pakistan,
Mm-hmm.
right? And how do you keep an eye on the money that you're sending there?
Well, I go there once or twice a year. I go to Pakistan and I check what's happening and make sure that, like, we were helping a school. We were helping a very large school, and then that whole refugee camp was relocated. The Pakistan Army made them leave. And so now there's another smaller Afghan school. But we're also helping Pakistan schools too, up in the north, sort of between Peshawar and the tribal areas.
And what kind of help? You don't build schools. How do you?
Well, no, because if you start a school from scratch, there's so much you have to bring together. But there's so many small schools. There's so many. Philanthropy in Pakistan is huge. There's so many people running their own small little schools that you can empower, and you could quadruple the capacity so easily with some funding, and all the people are already there. So you don't have to start from scratch. It's already there, but you can just empower them to bring more kids and to have better teaching. So that's what.
So you could do teacher training.
Teacher training. Well, we actually have to even bring a power source, because the power in Pakistan all over the country goes off all the time. And the rich people, they all have generators or batteries or whatever. But in the rural areas and the poor people, they just sit in the dark. And I mean, one school we went to that we eventually did a project with, we went there and we sat, and the kids sat there for 3 hours. The lights never came on. So I took pictures of kids in the dark. Then when I came back and showed it to Rotary clubs, they said, right, we're going to buy them a generator. And they didn't know anything about Pakistan. They didn't know anything. They just saw these kids sitting in the dark, and they wanted to help.
Now, very naively, I thought, oh, we'll get them all generators. But you pointed out to me that then you got the problem. They might have a wonderful generator, but if they can't afford the petrol.
Right.
So what is this? What solution have you come
Well,
up with?
it's amazing because there's even less infrastructure in Afghanistan. So they've been doing solar panels for years.
They have?
Yeah. So we're going to have like 2 panels on each school, and that'll be enough. And it's free. Once you put it in, it's free.
Now, I understand that Rotary, you're doing a lot of work with Rotary.
Yeah, Rotary is a wonderful international organization. There's a Rotary in every country except maybe China, maybe Libya, I'm not sure. They will soon anyway. So it's a group of people that meet, once a week, and they all want to make their community and the world a better place. It's an international association of peace and humanitarians that communicate throughout the world, but not enough. Like if you know Rotarians in any country, you actually have you're in touch with the grassroots of that country.
Because they're local business owners, right?
Right, and they all have relatives in every village.
Yeah.
Like, Rotary is so underutilized. Rotary actually can do things that governments can only dream of. Because we have access to that tribe and that family and that village and those roots everywhere.
So you connected up a Rotary in the U.S. with a Rotary in Peshawar.
Yes, yes. And we've been doing projects with Peshawar Rotarians for many years. And we have 3 big projects in process now.
Which are?
Well, they're also for schools in the same area. I mean, once you know an area, you just, oh, there's this school, and then there's that school, and you know, it's no point to jump around when you already have the network of people right there. So we have 3 more schools we're working on, and I went and spoke in Toledo, Ohio, because the Dosti Foundation, the organization I work with, is based there. So I'm doing 3 big grants with Rotarians in Ohio. Who would have thunk it? It's fabulous.
And you live in Groveland.
I live in Groveland.
Right.
And I'm in Ipswich Rotary Club.
The wonderful thing about that is that they can keep an eye easily on whether the school actually got computers and whether the teachers actually got training and other things. So
well, they physically, the Rotarians in Pakistan, they physically put them there themselves. They physically deliver them and check on them. And I mean, the guys that in this one club, I mean, well, one of them is a professor of engineering and the other one is a mechanical engineer. So, I mean, they really do all the work, and they go and check on it, and then I go and visit repeatedly. Every year I go back, I check all the projects that we've done. So,
and you've met these Peshawar Rotarians?
Oh yeah. I talk to them on the phone all the time, and then we communicate all the
And
time.
it's okay with women? You don't have any trouble gender-wise? They're not taking you
No,
seriously?
they do have women Rotarians. In fact, in Lahore and Islamabad, they have a lot of women Rotarians. But in Peshawar, it's very interesting. But the women have their own Rotary club. And that used to be like that here too. They had to take Rotary to the Supreme Court, and it was only in 1984 that women won the right to be in Rotary.
Oh.
The last time I was in Peshawar, we were all sitting around, and the women, the wives of the Rotarians all came, and they have something called Inner Wheel. And I was sitting with the wives talking, and we were all talking. They were all very sexist. They were all actually putting men down as we just. It was so funny. It was like nobody would believe I'm in Peshawar talking to these Pakistani women. They have their own sense of being and their own pride, and you know, women's rights are about education, and these were all very well-educated women. So it's never what you think it is. It was a fabulous experience.
Yes, we're mostly, when we think of Afghans, we think of people who are carrying guns or whipping women or whatever. You're interacting with urban, educated, and unselfish, altruistic, right?
Yes. Oh, the Afghan activists I know, I mean, they are out to make their country a better place. And the schools educate activists. They educate the kids to become activists, and they educate the kids to go back and help Afghanistan and be in Afghanistan and be teachers and to help. What the problem with Afghanistan is, the big nonprofit organizations will hire out anybody that can speak English and pay them so much money that the other layers of business and education can't afford to hire anybody. But these kids will stay working for their own people.
These are kids who are now in Pakistan, who are being trained to care about their country of origin and to go back and serve. Right. And that's part of the schools.
That's the school teaches them to go back and contribute. That's the whole idea of the schools.
Now, you said something interesting to me earlier, which is that you feel as if the U.S. has some responsibility in Afghanistan, not just since the invasion 10 years ago.
Yeah,
but tell me what the history that you're aware of.
You know, there's so many myths about Afghanistan and how it got the way it is, and the same with Pakistan. There's so many myths about how Pakistan got where it is today. But I mean, American foreign policy has been doing all kinds of things there since the 70s. In fact, when the Russians moved in, we were already there. So, I mean, we have been, you know, our foreign policy has been infringing and interfering for our own purpose for many, many years, for decades. And it's not what we've heard that the Russians went in and then we defeated them and then we left. Actually, when the Russians left, then we kept paying the Mujahideen. we stayed there.
Who are now what we call Al-Qaeda, right?
No, they're now the government of Afghanistan.
Oh, and many of the warlords.
Yes, they're the same guys.
Right.
You know, we brought them up, and then we put them in. And we pulled Karzai out of our back pocket. We didn't know who Karzai was, but...
He's on the board of oil companies. I know
yes,
that.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. In fact, nobody even knew who he was, but he's Pashtun, and the country is actually 42% Pashtun, and we didn't have anybody to put in there. So we thought, oh, we'll get him, at least he'll be one. I mean, none of it really adds up if you look at the whole background, and it's a very complicated situation. And what we have done seems to mirror what the Russians did. Except for they got out after 9 years, and we're still there. It's just so sad.
I understand the Russian mothers actually took transportation to Afghanistan and said to their sons, "You're coming home with me," and that was part of the beginning of the end of the Russians.
Well, also the Russians changed government. The Russian government lost interest in Afghanistan.
Now, this is the picture I have. The Taliban were there, depressing everybody, repressing them, mistreating them, and we came in and we brought them democracy. Now, so how have we improved the lives of women in Afghanistan?
Well, actually, first we got the Mujahideen to come in 1992 because we kept siphoning money to them, and they took over Kabul from 92 to 96 and ended up killing 50,000 people.
And they were constantly warring with one each other and killing people with impunity, and it was really almost medieval in that every warlord had his fief.
Medieval would be complimenting it. It was bedlam.
Right.
And then when the Taliban started, they were actually, people liked them at first because they brought peace. And yes, they were terrible to women, and power corrupts. They became horrible, but now that grassroots Afghan women prefer the Taliban because at least if you followed the rules, you weren't killed or kidnapped. Well, the Taliban run most of the country, but the government of Afghanistan is so corrupt, and the police are so corrupt that anything could happen to you at any time, no matter what you're doing, even if you stay home.
And they'll come and break into your home and rape you and kill you and whatever. And again, with impunity, that's one of the things that people don't realize, and I think it has to do even with the bank failures here, that if people get away with things, it encourages them, that it requires a certain kind of regulation or accountability.
Right.
People are not naturally good, some of them anyway, and if they can get away with it, and no one holds them accountable, and that is what has happened, there's no one holding anyone accountable.
Right. There was a certain time in like 2002 or 2003 that they tried to, make people accountable for what had been done in the past. But the U.S. government wouldn't allow it.
Yeah.
When the report came out from the UN, the Human Rights Report, we shut it down.
One of your roles, too, is to just educate Americans about what's happening in Afghanistan. Is that correct?
Yes, because, we love our country, and we want to think that it does good things around the world, but if we don't make our elected officials accountable for what they do, just like you said, accountability, if they can do anything they want, they don't understand the real scene. They only get the picture of what, like, say, Afghanistan is like by the people that are benefiting from them. They don't really get the vision of what people live in, the grassroots people, the poor people. 90% of them are poor, and 95% don't even live in the city.
And those are
they don't get to meet those people.
Those are the people you are meeting,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, and they're the ones that want us to do surges of humanitarian help, but not military surges. Military surges are counterproductive. So, it's...
And you have a film?
Yes, it's a beautiful film. It was made by Meena Nanji. It's called View from a Grain of Sand. It's a beautiful film. She's an artist. She went to Afghanistan and Pakistan in 99, 2001, and 2006. And it just shows the historical background, the political background, and the lives of 3 different women. It shows family life, the religion. It's a wonderful film, and it's not something anybody would ever know exists as far as real life and history.
And I understand that you want to bring that to Marblehead. You think
Yes,
you might?
yes. I also have a photo exhibition that goes with it that actually shows I went to the same refugee camp as Meena. So it has the pictures of the people in the film, and everybody loves this film. It's really a wonderful film to see, and everybody's surprised at it when they see it.
So I would say keep your eyes open in the reporter for news of when this film, View from a Grain of Sand, if you're interested in learning more about ordinary Afghan women from their own story.
Yes.
I just want to say, Rachel, I am so impressed with the fact that you found something you wanted to help, you connected with a group, which is, number one, people can't do things alone. Right. That you need to be in community, connect with a group, and then if you see a special area of need, you can gather others around you as you have your Afghani partner, and individuals can make a difference. And I have to say, every week, it's like, oh my God, this person sitting across from me just made up their mind to make a difference, and that's all it takes.
We can all make a difference. We all need to make a difference, and it's all connected. It's amazing.
Right, and every little bit of good that goes into the world redresses the balance of what is happening. So if you're discouraged with the world, tune in here and you'll see that if every one of us did only a small part, everything would change. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you.
'Cause an idea, this time has come, cannot be stopped by anyone. Plant your seeds in fertile ground, there ain't nothing gonna keep it down. Oh, we can do it, yes we can. We can change things throughout the land, but we all must lend a hand. We can do it, oh yes we can. We can do it, yes we can. We can change things throughout the land, but we all